And continuing on the defensive side, the first group of defensive backs were Ashton Stamps at corner, Jordan Gilbert at safety. You also had Jordan Allen at safety with Sage as the other corner and Major in that star spot. So your corners being Stamps and Sage with Gilbert and Allen as the safeties. I think were there any of those names that stood out to you and surprised you a little bit, Lloyd?
I would say that, and this came out, I think Brian Kelly's doing his post-practice presser, but this is something that I felt like was going to happen. While Toviano was out there, you saw him, and he's been reinstated by the university, so it's trending, I guess, I don't know which direction this is going legally, but it looks these are all good signs for Toviano that he's at least enrolled at LSU, and then you see him on the practice field along with Trey Holly. They were both out there, but Sage Ryan is now cross-training again at corner and safety because you need depth there, and it's one thing that he's done throughout his career, but it's never felt like he's got a real fair shake because he's had to learn multiple positions, and it never felt like he's gotten to utilize. He was a 5-star coming in and all the potential that he had, but he's just never been able to get comfortable on the field. Who was comfortable is Major Burns in that star position.
I agree.
He is as vocal of a presence on the defensive side that I'd seen. Like, he was calling out plays, he was helping with assignment and telling people where to be and what to do, and it was all vocal pre-snap and post-snap. So I thought that was pretty impressive because he is closer to the ball. He's almost like a de facto, I guess, like a linebacker in a sense, where he'll line up in the nickel. But the way he was calling things out, like, it's good to have him that close to the line of scrimmage to communicate with all those guys like that.
I agree. Major Burns' leadership is definitely something that stood out because that's what you need. You need that player accountability, especially in that defensive room that's been, more down than up as of late. And so for Major Burns to really step into a position like the star position that I think is going to fit him well, for him to be able to be that vocal leader and to get the most and really just kind of organize, what's happening on the field from a player standpoint is huge. Because there are times, regardless of how good the coach is at scheming, at getting guys in the right spot, there's going to be times where the players are mixed up and the communication can be cut off between a coach and a player. And so to have somebody like Major Burns on the field to really get everybody organized is definitely going to, help improve, the rough defense we saw last year. And so I think it's the star position is going to be a good fit for Major. I liked seeing Stamps out there. Jordan Gilbert is put together. Mm-hmm. The safety transfer from Texas A&M. That's what an SEC football player looks like. And I expect him to make an impact because as talented as some of these young guys at safety are, he's got all the experience and he's gonna be what LSU needs when it comes to a physicality aspect, in the defensive backfield. The one that did surprise me was Jordan Allen being out there at safety. Mm-hmm. Not surprised me in a bad way because I think Jordan Allen is an outstanding football player. And he was a huge get for Brian Kelly, and I think that was his first recruiting cycle at LSU. But you've heard a lot of names from some of these younger guys like Kylan Jackson, Deshaun Spears,
formerly Deshaun McBride,
right? And then even Sage Ryan at safety, and some of those younger corners getting mixed in. But to see Jordan Allen out there with that first group, I think is encouraging. Because what that means is that these players are being developed. Mm-hmm. That it's not like, oh, well, we've got these young guys coming in. They're ahead of where Jordan may have been when he was a freshman. But Jordan's not a freshman anymore. He's been developed. He's been in the program. And I think the defensive back room really does have some good depth, which is something that LSU has needed, over the last couple of years. And then the starting linebackers with that first group were Penn and Perkins, which I don't think is a surprise for anybody. Penn wearing number 3 does look outstanding. Mm-hmm. So I think that defensive group looks good. And what stood out to me was that they never appeared to be in the wrong spot. Were there times they got beat or didn't make the most of a play, like they could have had an interception and dropped it or whatever? Yes, they made mistakes in that aspect. But from the coaching point of view, they were in the right spots. They were moving as a unit. They looked organized, which is as minute as those things may seem, we saw what it looks like when those things aren't happening last year. And so that's what stood out to me on the defensive side. Although we didn't get to see, an intense pad on, going after each other scrimmage or whatever, it wasn't a game. They were in a shell drill and they're still moving well. They're all a unit moving in the right direction, doing the right things, which is when you're doing that in practices like today, it's going to build up. And then ultimately when it gets to September 1st, that's when it's all going to come together. And so hopefully if they're able to continue on this trajectory and continue to move the way they were today and be in the right spots, they've got the athletes to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think you saw some of the defensive drills, like when they were going up against the offense, it wasn't like the 11-on-11 period, but whenever it was kind of like 7-on-7 type deal, you saw like guys break on balls and make plays, and they picked off, I think, Ricky Collins a couple times, and you saw guys that were going up and being aggressive because they knew they were in the right spot. I know it's one day, but it was good to see that it wasn't the opposite of that where we're stopping practice multiple times and you're yelling at one guy. It felt like they were pretty much locked in and kind of winning some drills that you wouldn't think that they would win on day one.
Yeah, no, I mean there were some one-on-one opportunities for receivers and cornerbacks, and you weren't seeing DBs get beat up on. But yes, there were some interceptions. I think Harold Perkins had one. He was covering Mac Markway up the sideline right in front of us, and he picked off Ricky Collins, and then Kylan Jackson had an interception right after that. But then Ricky responded with a great throw to Aaron Anderson into a window down the sideline, fitting it over the corner right before the safety got there. It was a beautiful throw.
Kylan Jackson interception was impressive.
Yes, Kylan.
They kind of like almost stopped practice for a little bit and let him like celebrate a little. Like, dude, that was good. Like that was a great rep. They stopped. They all got kind of a little defensive versus offense type deal there. And you also saw, I didn't see him practice, but he was at practice in pads, Zy Alexander.
Yes.
I don't know if he did. He probably did some individual stuff, but I didn't see him in the team drill. But I could have just missed it.
Yeah, and so I think with guys like that, this defensive back room has all the depth, not all the depth in the world, but it has very good depth. Like enough depth that you can be confident in that room. Now, as if you can get the most out of them, have them in the right spots, and be able to move forward, that's a plus, because that's the most important aspect, because like I said, we saw it last year where that wasn't happening. There's some talent in that room, especially in those young guys. Kylan Jackson, PJ Woodland, Deshaun Spears, they were all in that second group. Jawan Johnson also was on the second DB group, which was, pretty cool to see. Another freshman getting some good run. With the two linebackers with that group were the Weeks brothers on the field together, which is awesome. But you've got very good depth when it comes to that defensive backfield, because there are a lot of these young guys that people were expecting to be able to push for the starting position. And so for these older guys that have been in the program, to be able to kind of put their foot down and solidify themselves as the first group. We'll see how it goes from here on out. But for it to start that way and for them to look the way they did today, it's very, very.
It's very positive for the first day, and also going back to like this 11-on-11 deal where it was pretty much full go.
Yeah.
Aside from like they weren't running it up the middle and tackling each other, but it was the pass plays were as good of reps as you can get on each other with it feeling like a game simulation type style. Nuts looked totally in control of the offense.
Yes.
Like it looked like a veteran guy that has been you wouldn't know that it's a first year starter.
100%.
It looks like somebody that like, all right, I'm calm, cool, collected, ran the offense, was very decisive, threw some balls away that were jumped on by like Major Burns, made a play and stepped up.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to force it, he just spiked it at his feet. They tried to run some screens to Chris Hilton. So you're seeing that they have the idea of getting these guys like the ball in space, like especially playmakers. Right. And then the one guy that I don't know if this was thought about a lot, but Shelton Sampson made 2 huge catches down the sideline that were exciting to watch. Like you saw that's why he's another 5-star that has all the potential in the world, and that's something that he can go do. He stretched the field vertically and went up and took it off somebody's head twice.
Yeah, I agree. Switching to the offensive side, I mean, the offense looked like what the offense is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
offensive line is the unit I'll start with. They dominated the defensive line in the drills that they were going head up against, which is not a knock against the defensive line.
No, they'll be able to just run the football.
Right, because that's the best offensive line group in the country. And I will stand on it regardless. You can show me whoever else, I don't care. From the starting 5 to the backup 5 to utility pieces, that's the best offensive line room in the country. And so for them to beat up on the defensive line in some of those drills, I'll take back beat up on, but to win. The offensive line won majority of those one-on-one drills.
Yeah.
And which is what you should expect. And which it's not a knock against the defensive line group at all, because they were able to get some wins, which is exactly what you need. And that's positive because they're going against the best at their positions, like Will Campbell, Emory Jones. DJ Chester looked good in those one-on-ones. But, yeah, when it comes to seeing guys like Shelton Sampson, he stood out to me, I think to everybody at the start, because those 2 catches down the sideline were exactly what you expect and you want from Shelton Sampson when it comes to his growth. Like that's who Shelton Sampson is. He's an outside wide receiver that should be able to beat his guy one-on-one and go up and win the jump ball. And that's what we saw on back-to-back plays by Shelton.
And just for that receiver room, I'd say Kyron Lacy looked like Kyron Lacy, and not in a bad way, not like the drop Kyron Lacy. It looked like somebody that has stepped up and wants to be that one receiver, making tightly contested catches. He was like fighting for balls, coming back to them, like everything that you wanted to see him do, right? And he looked so comfortable out there. Like between him and Nuss, there's a real rapport there that you're going to see manifest itself. And the other guys, it was Lacy, C.J. Daniels, and then you saw sprinkles of Aaron Anderson, and Chris Hilton, and I believe that who was my other guy? Xavier Thomas was out there also. So that looked like the 4 that they were kind of going to. The Shelton Sampson plays a run with the 2s. And if you want to talk about who won the day, but if there's a competition between Ricky Collins and A.J. Swan looked like the more in control quarterback, I would say. He looked like somebody that had started in SEC games before. Right.
And I think that's the part that's the biggest difference between those 2 guys when it comes to the backup quarterback spot, is the experience that Swan has had. But that wide receiver room, we talked about it a lot this morning. But when it comes to wide receiver 1 and 2, regardless of the order you want to put it, I think C.J. Daniels and Kyron Lacy have those 2 spots pretty secure. And I think that should give LSU fans a lot of confidence in the offense because they're both very skilled. They looked great out there. They look like LSU wide receivers.
Yeah.
And really that's all you can ask for. And so it'll be interesting to see how they use some of these other guys because I think Chris Hilton, Xavier Thomas, Aaron Anderson, Shelton Sampson, Kyle Parker, they all have a real opportunity ahead of them to make a mark. And so, but when it comes to the quarterback room, Garrett Nussmeier gave me all the confidence in the world today that he's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And it's not going to be this rough first year explode in the next season like we saw with Jaden and with Joe because he's been in the program for so long. You can see that sense of confidence he has in himself physically to make the throws, make the plays, but the confidence he has mentally, that he knows what the right decision is, he knows what to do, and he trusts his guys to make the play.
You saw flashes of, this is with the 2s also, but Jelani Watkins did get some run with the 2s. And then somebody that we also have to talk about is Trey-Dez Green just being out there as a sight to see. It was everybody that was able to watch practice was like, good Lord, he looks all of it. Because he's not just tall. Right. He doesn't look like a freshman. He's put together, and they were putting in opportunities for him to go make plays where you're like, he's going to play.
Yeah. No, I would be, as not rough, as it's been over the last couple of years, it's been kind of a push for us begging LSU to put some of these freshmen on the field because there's been times where they just haven't, like Deshaun Womack, like Harold Perkins, early, like that's been the push. And so, but to me, it's going to be very, very difficult for this coaching staff to keep Trey-Dez Green off the field because he's got such a unique skill set because he's a tight end and he's not like this skinny. He's not only a tight end because he's tall, because I think that's what can get mixed up sometimes is that he's only a tight end because he's what, 6'8", 6'7",
6'7", 250,
right?
And he's not your prototypical tight end. It's going to be more of how you saw Jimmy Graham with the Saints, where they're going to split him out wide, like they're going to get him the football. He's not there to block. And so what they're going to do with Trey'Dez Green is you'll probably see him in packages where you have a Mac Markway out there, or obviously you have a Mason Taylor, but he's there to be a threat. He's not going to be inline blocking.
No, it's not going to be this. We're going to run the ball outside with Trey'Dez Green at the end of the line. That's not why 14's on the field.
No, and he was out there for multiple plays where LSU was running some motion, and he was the motion guy where he's doing whether it be orbit motion or going across the line, and like they're kind of basing the snap off of where he is. Like they're expecting him to be in that role where it's not your prototypical tight end. Like they're putting him in action. Yeah,
because just think about it. If you were a defensive player and you saw 14 motion around the field, everyone's eyes are going to be like, where's he going?
And if you can decipher where you're one-on-one with him, that's where you start to have like, all right, we're identifying, we're going here now, because that makes it so much easier on the quarterback. Also, Ashton Stamps had a good day too. He was your other starting corner, where you weren't sure who was going to really be out there, but Stamps went out and held his own. And that's the benefit of having some of these guys get reps last year, which is why we were kowtowing for it so much, because if you're not going to compete with these guys, like what are you doing? Because it feels like the defense was already lost last year.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, at least let them get some experience. You saw that with Toviano, obviously with Stamps, and then you bring in some transfer guys that you can pepper in, and a new defense where you had Blake Baker out there in the cleats.
Yep.
He was running around, and he's not as vocal as a Bo or Brad Davis, but he also knows how he delivers his message in a very different way, where he's teaching you and talking to you, but expects a lot from you. Like it was cool to see him out there because he looks like he wants to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can't compliment this defensive staff enough from what we've seen so far. Like the season's going to have its own trials and tribulations or what have you, but from what we've seen so far and heard so far from this defensive staff, whether it's Peoples, Davis, Baker, Raymond, Olsen, and the list goes on, they're all very impressive. You can see the bond that they've already been able to build with these guys on the field kind of come to fruition in things like practice today. After that impressive interception that Kylan Jackson had, Jake Olsen's on the field celebrating with him. Not throwing a party, but like congratulating him, giving him his flowers, and encouraging him to go make that play again. And so you can see the bond that's been built between the coaches and the players in what really has been a short period of time. Mm-hmm. And so obviously that's only going to grow as time goes on. But I think today's practice was very encouraging, is what I would say the most, is that it was very encouraging to see the offense be what the offense is supposed to be. But just for me, seeing the defense in the right spots is as big of a deal as anything when it comes to LSU football from last year to this year. Seeing them move as a unit and, not have any bad, coverage bust or anything like that.
It was
very
like
encouraging.
I said, the two biggest plays were both from Shelton Sampson, and they were contested catches.
Right.
That's why they were impressive. There was nobody running alone out there. And I guess you would say that for what they're still trying, Aaron Anderson was running with the punt team also. It was him and Xavion Thomas back there, but that experiment may not be over. But he looked very comfortable catching the football. And then when they put him in, they put him in different packages where you can see the juice. So I'd imagine that he's going to have packages or plays where he gets to play a lot more, because I don't think he was ever fully healthy last year.
No, me neither.
I feel like he was never.
It didn't look like it.
Yeah, he didn't get to trust that with his ankle or his knee. I think it was his knee, and he didn't really ever feel like he was moving correctly. He looked like an athlete today, like somebody that you want to be able to get the football to, and you can have plays designed for him. And he also lined up out wide. Like he was in the slot a lot. Yeah. But then when times came, he could play different parts of the field and play different positions. Yeah.
No, I think it was a very encouraging day for us as LSU football fans, because you've got guys and you've got them in the right spots. It really to me looks like this coaching staff, offensive and defensive, has a good grasp on who the guys on the field are, and who deserves to be out there, and what they're good at, and making sure they're in the right spots, making sure they're coached up.
Would you say like Deshaun Womack, Savion Jones at your starting defensive ends, Guillory and Paez at defensive tackle, Penn and Perkins, and then you saw Sage Ryan at corner with Ashton Stamps, and then you have Major Burns in that like star position with Gilbert out there and Jordan Allen, which like you said, I think that's it's probably the most, it's such a big confidence boost for him for being a redshirt sophomore, being in the program, and actually getting an opportunity to play, because he's had appearances, but he's never had starts.
Right.
And so I think he earned the right to be out there for at least today, just through experience. Yeah,
and that's reassuring when it comes to the development, is that although there's been last year was a rough year when it came to the LSU defense, there wasn't a big drop-off in development of the players. Like, it wasn't like last year, really messed up any of the young guys in those rooms, because obviously Jordan Allen went through and got a new defensive staff and still has been able to grow and still has been able to improve and begin to reach his potential. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that room kind of shakes out and who gets what spot and whatever. But the like I said earlier, and Lloyd said as well, the most reassuring part is that defensive back room is deep. You've got guys, you've got young guys, you've got experienced guys, you've got safeties, you've got corners, all of the above, and they're all talented. That we don't have, LSU doesn't have a Tyrann Mathieu, a Derek Stingley, a Grant Delpit. It doesn't have one of those guys, a Patrick Peterson. It doesn't have somebody that really, pops off on the lineup cards. We're not gonna have, LSU's not gonna have anybody up for the Thorpe Award.
Yeah, shut down corner by any means, but it was a lot of, this is what we said going into it, and I think it's going to prove true. Like, the defense obviously has to get better from what you saw last year. Like, it just seems like it's impossible for it not to.
Yeah.
But from the staff changes that you brought in, that is what's there. That's already making a difference just in terms of alignment assignment. And at the start of the day before like practice really got going, they're doing individual drills and working with groups. Kevin Peoples is coaching the shit out of the defensive line. Like, they were doing some specialty drills for like rushing and like going one-on-ones, and he was everywhere to the point where it's like, I know that's not Baker. It's like, oh no, this is the defensive end specialist coach, and he was coaching it up, and very enthusiastic, high energy guy. But you're going to see him make a difference as well, because this is somebody that was maybe a little bit of an afterthought when he was first brought in because of the Blake Baker news. Yeah, but he's a difference maker.
Yeah, and he's gonna, and I think he's gonna get his guys to also be difference makers, which is what LSU needs. I really think this, and this is one practice that we've seen, but I think this LSU defense is gonna work so much better as a unit. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like you're gonna have a standout defensive line, standout defensive back. What you have is a standout linebacker. You have somebody that can win the Buckus Award. In Harold Perkins, but you've got, you've got talented enough defensive line and defensive back that are going to be able to work with each other. It's going to be a unit. It's not like it's going to be the defensive backs are bad. Well, we've got this really good D-line. Get after the quarterback and sack him so he can't throw it. Or the defensive line is bad. We need a bunch of lockdown corners to get a bunch of coverage, to force coverage sacks. Like, that's not how it's going to work. It's going to be a unit, and they're going to be moving together and working together. And that's what I saw from the defense today in practice number 1. And I'm hoping to see that continue through the next month, because today is August 1st. Game 1 is September 1st. So we can smell it.
Yes.
Like, we're right there.
So it's cooking.
Right. And so I'm very excited to see and continue to go to these practices. But
sweat.
Yeah, to be able to lose some weight, because that's what we were able to do today.
The collective, they're you're not alone in that camp.
Right.
If you know what I'm saying.
But regardless of what happened on the field, things will happen. But the confidence right now should be in this coaching staff. And I think that's where, after one day of practice, that's what stood out the most is LSU's got the right coaches.
Yeah.
That's as much as we'll see what happens during the season. Right now, I would be hard-pressed to imagine a world where any of these coaches are a bust or don't work out.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Like you said, obviously we all wanted to get a glimpse of the defense, but I know it's our first practice we've seen, but whatever they've been, what they've been doing as a unit together, like that translated to the field. That did not look like the first practice that they've run together where anything should be different or out of sorts. It was definitely this unit has been working together, and whatever they've been preached has been like whatever they taught, they picked up on. And I think that, like I said, the difference in communication and what you've seen, it's not a lot of throwing your hands up, people getting lost in zones. It was knowing your assignment and getting there quickly, which I think bodes well. And the other thing that I feel like very strongly that you can take from this LSU team, they're going to be able to run the football.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be surprised if the run game is not
because you didn't get to see it like a full go, but there was times it's like that's probably going to he can take that to the house.
Yeah, because LSU's got talented running backs.
They do, and they got offensive linemen that can move them around. Right. And when you have a young center with DJ Chester, but you have 4 starters around him, that eases that part of the communication where you can look to your left, look to your right, and he'll get better throughout the year because he'll be in meeting rooms with those guys where he can learn quickly. Yeah, no, I mean, I think Pete Thamel was on ESPN yesterday or whatever network it was, talking about USC and LSU, and he said he thinks LSU's just going to come out and play bully ball. Yeah, like they've got the best offensive line in the country, and they're going to go right at this defensive line of USC. And so I think the defensive coaching staff, but this run game, I think is going to not only is it going to be good, it's going to be relied on. Like they're going to need a solid rushing attack. Because obviously over the last 2 seasons, especially last year, you were able to kind of have a not as big-time running back rushing attack because of Jaden Daniels. Leading rusher was your quarterback the last 2 years.
And so with the shift to Nussmeier, who's not a statue pocket passer in any way, he can definitely move, but it's not going to be 3rd and 14 and he can take off and get the first down. Right. But if they have guys like Caleb Jackson, Josh Williams, John Emery, Caden Durham, and that group, not only behind the offensive line they have, they're really going to be able to push the pile and make plays, which is ultimately going to turn into making it the life easier of these wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Like if you're able to rush the ball the way LSU should, it's going to be a whole lot easier for Kyron Lacey, C.J. Daniels, Chris Hilton, and those guys to get one-on-one matchups because they're going to have to put more guys in the box to make sure Caleb Jackson doesn't break one off for 65 yards. It's going to be impressive to see how they move forward over these next couple of practices. It's going to be very interesting because
I was thoroughly impressed, I would say, for this being the first one and how smoothly everything was kind of operating and how they were still getting coached up hard, but it was effective and efficient. That's my biggest takeaway from day one, and I expect not really any of those things to change, that you don't look into that.
Yeah, because as much as, people can, and especially us, can blow things out of proportion after one practice and get overly excited because we love LSU football. When you saw the energy that the coaches had, and I know that's what we started the show with, it's hard not to be confident in them and this team because you can tell not only do they have a desire to win and to make it happen, they really feel like they have to. They know they have to. Like there's not another option. And so regardless of what this team's record ends up being, I don't think you'll see an ounce of quit in them. And I really think the coaches are going to get the most out of these guys, especially on the defensive end with what we saw today. So it'll be interesting to see, the remainder of practices.
And how much we get to see.
And how different it'll be from today. But we plan on doing this kind of recap show after the majority of these practices, where we can sit through and watch and bring back some information to you guys ahead of, the USC game in Las Vegas. So we hope. I think there's practice tomorrow. I think we'll be back out there tomorrow.
I believe so. Yesterday was obviously the one that was no media available,
Yep.
and then they had it today. And you see the presser that we'll put on tomorrow's show, I would imagine.
Yes.
And then we'll also bring you some clips on social that you'll be able to enjoy, because we got some good stuff that happened organically in practice that you just had a camera out. No tripods, though.
Right. No tripods. But yeah, so we'll I think probably be back here tomorrow to recap tomorrow's fall camp and continue to do this as we get ready for Las Vegas and LSU USC. We appreciate all of you for tuning in. Continue to like and subscribe to this channel.
Yeah.
Content still comes out on this channel. Although the live show is on the New Orleans.football YouTube channel, clips and YouTube shorts and everything still comes out here on the Jordy Culotta Show channel. So make sure you're subscribed.
Hit
Make
the
sure
notification.
you ding that bell.
Yep.
And if anybody wants to sponsor this little post-practice show, email us, noah@jordyculottashow.com. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning, 7 to 9, and we'll be back here to recap practice.
6:30 tomorrow.
6:30, yep, 6:30 tomorrow morning. The show will be a little bit earlier, but we'll be back to recap practice again tomorrow. Thank y'all for watching. See you then.
I took a break for a minute, I had to go charge up. Had to focus on my business, I'm coming back smarter. Hit up DJ, tell him go like I'm dropping the Carter. Coming back like KD, it's time to go harder. Bounce back, can't let you